This episode is brought to you by Hasa. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the bottom feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to talk to Bob Lowry about pool surface types and some cautions with different surface types. Bob Lowry, of course, is the premier chemical expert in the pool industry, and he has some great insights on how to protect different pool surfaces from damage from chemicals and from, of course, poor water balance. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy coaching program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. Let's talk about surface types. We mentioned in the startup the different startup methods, and we didn't really touch on the surface types because I wanted to leave it for a separate recording. There's all different precautions and care methods for the surface type. And let's start with one that is becoming very popular because of the cost of pools nowadays being built and the fact that if you want a pool, probably the cheapest one you can get is a vinyl, maybe above ground pool, or in-ground liner pool is less expensive than a full plaster or pebble tech pool. So what are some of the things to look for when you're getting a vinyl pool or an above ground pool installed?
Well, I think that the preparation of the area where the pool is going to be is really important, and so they need to make sure that you've got a solid bed for it, that they put the proper stuff underneath the bottom of the pool so something doesn't grow up through the ground and grow into your pool. And one of the biggest causes of problems is what they call nutgrass. And nutgrass can grow right through the vinyl and right into your pool. It's pretty tough stuff. But you need to just make sure that the preparation is right. And then there's any number of methods that they use for the form that goes around the pool to hold the pool up. And whether it's in ground or on ground, there needs to be a support system for the vinyl. After all, the vinyl is just a piece of vinyl. It's only I don't remember the thickness, but it seems to me it's like an eighth or 3/16, an eighth, about an eighth of an inch thick or less. So it is, a membrane, and it's going to fit inside of something, and then that something has to be supported. And you want something that will last so that it doesn't deteriorate or whatever. And there's steel and there's fiberglass and there's, different things that they use to hold the structure up. Getting the vinyl in the pool is really important, where the seam is and where it meets the very top of the pool, where the coping is, how it attaches at the top so that it doesn't come loose. And remember that it is vinyl, and so sharp objects in the pool can tear the vinyl.
Yeah.
And allow water to get behind it, and then you have some serious problems.
And, along with vinyl is fiberglass. It's also less expensive to drop in the fiberglass shell than to build a pool. And chemically wise, I find that the vinyl and fiberglass pools tend to hold pH better and hold chlorine better. I don't know what the reasoning behind that is.
Well, I'm not so sure that there's a reason for chlorine lasting longer in a vinyl pool, but certainly pH and alkalinity in a plaster pool, you've always got a little bit of plaster and alkalinity coming out of the plaster into the pool. And with a vinyl pool, you don't have that happening. Vinyl is plastic. It's the same thing we put, water in plastic bottles and, chemicals and everything else. It's pretty good stuff. The problem usually is that it's not very thick. But fiberglass pools are becoming more and more popular, especially because you can dig a hole, drop it in, and be done. The time from ordering a pool to when you can dive into it can be less than 30 days in some cases for a fiberglass pool. If you're going to do a traditional pool, you're probably looking at 6 or 8 weeks to build it.
Yeah, and then
or
with the I was gonna say with the fiberglass too, I know that a lot of the builders will void the warranty if the customer uses trichlor tablets in there.
it seems like the vinyl and the fiberglass are subject to more problems with acid than anything else. And when I had a lab and when I was at Leslie some years ago as their technical director, I was able to do some things in the lab just to try them out. That's what chemists do. And I took pieces of vinyl and I dropped straight chlorine on it. Never bleached it, never did anything to it. One drop of acid and the color was gone. And actually that kind of surprised me because my logic thinking tells you it should be the other way. Chlorine is an oxidizer. It's a bleach. You put it on vinyl, it should bleach the color out. Didn't do it. But one drop of acid on it and the color disappeared. It was white.
Yeah, and with the fiberglass pool, with the tablet, if it were to fall in there, it would leave a permanent stain.
Yeah, it would probably leave a permanent stain, and it may even blister the pool where it fell in there. No question about it. And I've had people send me pictures and they go, "Oh, gee, the homeowner took 2 chlorine tablets and threw it in a pool." I go, "That's permanent unless you want to re-gel coat the pool."
And so with the vinyl and fiberglass, I think you mentioned that the plaster pool creates its own acid demand kind of. With the vinyl fiberglass pool, the problem that I have a lot is that the pH is always pretty low in there, even without using the tablets.
Right. This is true. There isn't any alkalinity that's reaching into the pool. So we do say that, I do promote a system of using targets, but the target for calcium arginus in a plaster pool is 350 parts per million. And I think the PHTA guideline is 200 to 400 ppm. But for vinyl, I recommend 250 parts per million. We don't need that much calcium in there. We're not trying to prevent the calcium from coming out of the walls.
Yeah.
We don't need it. So we use a 200 or 250. But, many of the areas where they have vinyl pools, they don't even check for calcium. They just fill the pool up and check pH and alkalinity, and that's it. And you really need to be checking all the things. You need to be checking cyanuric acid and metals and everything else, just like you do every pool.
Yeah, like we mentioned that plaster pools are probably the most popular still. And what are some of the issues you can have? We mentioned in the startup issues you can have with plaster pools. One thing that I noticed is a lot of the colored plaster pools are susceptible to mottling. The color kind of patterns in there that you see.
Yeah.
Is there a way to even prevent mottling from happening, or is there a consensus of what actually causes that mottling in the pool?
My expertise pretty much stops at the water.
Yeah.
And my former partner, Greg Garrett, was a master at surfaces. And he could look at a surface, he could lean down in a pool and rub his hand on it and tell you exactly whether it was troweled right, if they put too much accelerator in it. He could tell you everything about that pool, everything about the surface of that pool. Me, I look at a pool and I go, "That's nice," And so I don't know what causes nodules, what causes troweling marks, which causes delamination, all those other things that get into the surface of the pools. That is a whole subject, and you could spend a lifetime, like I have done, figuring out surface problems, and I've chosen to take care of water problems. So uh, I don't know whether there's something you can do or not do to prevent modeling of colored surface plaster. I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah. So your expertise, of course, is the chemistry part, and
That's right.
the focus on chemistry. You have most of your literature is for plaster surface pools. The balancing of it, target ranges, because those are the most popular, and I think that's what you focus on, right? In your
Well,
literature.
we do, and many vinyl pools are not as expensive as plaster, and we find a lot of people want, to take care of their own pools if they have vinyl, versus somebody that has a plaster pool and spend a lot of money on it. They afford to have somebody wash their car, clean their house, and clean their pool. They they pay people to do that.
Yeah.
But the vinyl guys, especially the above ground vinyl people, they might have spent, anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 on a pool, and they don't want to have to pay somebody, 100 or $200 a month to come and clean their pool.
One of the things that I notice about the above ground pools, and this is just from the service end of it, is that, well, first of all, the manufacturer can't ship full size equipment in the box when they sell them at, Costco or Walmart. And so you have this extremely small filter. I mean, I've seen
Right.
cartridge filters as small as 15 square feet on a, 5 or 10,000 gallon above ground pool that they sell,
Yes.
and maybe a 1/8 horsepower pump if you're lucky, and
Yeah.
no timer. So I think the first thing you want to do is upgrade your equipment, right?
Absolutely. That I don't think I've seen one of those package pools that ever has the right size equipment ever. Because they're trying to keep the cost down. They're trying to sell you a package for $2,000. They can't put $1,000 worth of equipment on it. So the first thing you need to do is upgrade that. I have even seen, you mentioned a little small filter. I've even seen a paper filter, not even polyester, it's paper, like you use on a carburetor in a car. It's made out of paper. And I mean, that's like a coffee filter, man. That's not very much filtration at all. And the thing is barely, turning over any water. It takes you 3 days to get one turnover in your pool. And those above ground pools don't have a main drain. And so all the stuff that gets to the bottom never makes it in, never gets sucked into the filter to be filtered out.
And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. Yeah, that's so true, and I think that's one of the issues people have with above ground pools is the equipment versus chemistry. And then the last surface type, and it's really popular in California, are the pebble tech or pebble sheen surfaces. And pebble tech basically is just rock. And is there any kind of, I know for me in my area, the two number one problems I deal with pebble tech is a lot of calcium buildup on the pebble, and also algae getting inside the crevices a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if, would you consider those very common problems in the pebble tech?
There are some companies that when they make the exposed aggregate or pebble tech type of finishes, they actually get a diamond sander and sand that stuff to where it's smooth instead of just exposing the aggregate and then dissolving the cream that's on top of the aggregate. They actually polish it with a diamond sander. And when they do that, it has a lot less of that getting algae and getting calcium into those crevices. There's not much you can do about that except from a maintenance standpoint. You need to make sure that the filter is on, or the circulation system is on long enough to keep the sanitizer moving around in the pool. Because if you have a quick turnover, that means the water is sitting idle for many hours. Bacteria or algae can use up the sanitizer in the area surrounding it. And if there's no water movement, then it can grow without new sanitizer being replaced, and it can flourish. So you need to keep the water moving in those pools. And you also need to either use a cleaner that can brush like a robotic cleaner, or you need to brush the pool once or twice a week to keep that stuff from getting a foothold, if you will, into the pebble finish.
Yeah, because in a pebble tech pool, once the algae gets a foothold, it's a real battle to remove it. So I think those suggestions to keep the water moving and keep it from happening in the first place are key, because if you're a service person out there and you've had a pebble tech surface pool that had an algae bloom, it's twice or three times the amount of work to clear it up because of those
Well,
pebbles.
it really is. And I have been a proponent for a number of years about keeping a chlorine level that is different from what the PHTA recommends. They recommend a level of 2.0 to 4.0 parts per million of free chlorine in the pool. And that doesn't always work. And my recommendation is to keep a chlorine level in the pool that is 7.5% of the cyanuric acid level. And this is for residential pools only, but it is a way to make sure that algae doesn't grow in the pool. And the problem is that many times you don't have sufficient chlorine in the pool to kill the algae. And if you've got, for instance, if you've got, say, 80 parts per million or 100 parts per million of cyanuric acid in the pool, you actually probably need about 7 or 8 parts per million of chlorine. I'm sorry, you need about 5 or 6 parts per million of chlorine in the pool to keep algae from growing. But the PHTA guidelines is 2 to 4. I'm a little bit at odds with them, but I've done a lot of research to try and figure out what the level should be. And the consensus is that you need at least 5% of cyanuric acid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the minimum. And the proper level is probably 7.5. And if you use borate in your pool, you can lower those levels again because they prevent algae.
A basic example would be if you have a pebble tech pool, and we'll just keep it really basic, and you have a cyanuric acid level of 100 parts per million, then you're going to need a free chlorine level of 7.5 parts per million. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so if you're getting algae in your pebble tech pool, it may be because you don't have enough free chlorine in there, and that's where you're getting the algae blooms from. So I agree with you. I think your analysis of the chlorine level is much more accurate, because I've dealt with pools with high cyanuric acid levels. They get algae and get things like that. And when you raise it above a level that you think is astronomical, it does actually, or maintain it at that level, 10 parts per million, everything is better. And I think that kind of proves the point that the high cyanuric acid level is a major factor.
It really is. And also too, on a pebble tech pool, I would recommend putting borate in the pool at 50 parts per million, because one of the characteristics of borate is that it prevents algae. It is not an algicide. It doesn't kill it, but it prevents it. And this is what you want to have happen, is to have the borate in the pool so that when the algae tries to start growing, the borate kills it, prevents it from starting. And so using borate and keeping a proper chlorine level in a pebble pool is the right thing to do.
And if you're looking for other podcasts, you can find those by going to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, clicking on the podcast icon. There'll be over 1,800 podcasts for you there to download and listen to. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.